Good afternoon and welcome to this beautiful Unity Zoom with Dr. Eva Eger. Thank you so much everyone for joining. We have the unity of 7 Chabad houses throughout Southern California and beautiful Hawaii. I'd like to welcome everyone. I'd like to welcome Dr. Eger to our Zoom room. As you know, people in our community, Doctor, heard that we're having you speak for our communities. They were so excited. They said, I've read her book. You are the epitome, the embodiment of not only surviving, but thriving. And now we are heading into the 9 days where we mourn the destruction of the temples, but we also look forward to a brighter future, the Messianic era. And that's what you represent, Dr. Eger, is you've gone through so much, but your life represents a brighter future, looking forward to a brighter future, a greater tomorrow. And we can all learn from you to take one step, put it in front of the other, and to really make our lives and the lives of those around us a better world. So I'd like to welcome our community of Santa Clarita. Welcome to the Zoom, and everybody who is joining from Santa Clarita, welcome, welcome. Now we're going to have every Chabad rabbi and rebbitzin welcome their communities, welcome themselves on behalf of their community. Continue with the Rebbe Goldman.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having us from Hawaii. We're very honored to be part of this. And thank you, Rabbi Morozov, for putting this together and inviting our community to join. Welcome to all of our friends around the islands. And we look very much to hearing from Dr. Eger.
Welcome to our community here in the South Bay, Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach. I see many of you are on. It's really an honor to be able to spend an evening with Dr. Eger. Some of you may have read her book already. I know many of you are planning to, but really to hear her directly, a hero, a survivor. And we're really looking forward to this evening and to hearing from you.
Hello from Honolulu. Welcome from Chabad of Hawaii. We'd love to see you on our shores one day, Dr. Eger, and we're really excited to have you present to our community as well.
Thank you.
Aloha. Shaloha, as we say.
Shalom.
Good evening from Westlake Village, Canal Valley, California. It's an honor to be here tonight with our community, Dr. Eger. We've spoken about your heroism on Yom Kippur. We've used you as a model to inspire our community on Yom Kippur, and it's great to be here tonight with you.
And Rabbi Schlanger on. There we go. Good, unmute.
Okay. Could you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, Dr. Eger.
Hello.
Our community is in Bakersfield, California. My wife and I have both read your book, and we're very inspired, and we look forward to hearing your story tonight. Thank you so much, and thank you to the organizers of tonight's event.
Thank you. Thank you. Nothing like a nice couple here, a good role model to everyone. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for all the Chabad rabbis and rebbitzins or communities who are joining us from all around California and Hawaii. And we're going to do this evening as an interview. We're going to have a few of the Chabad rabbis and rebbitzin interviewing Dr. Eger. We're going to start with the Rebbitzin Schlanger in Bakersfield, California, with the interview. Welcome, Rebbitzin Esther Schlanger.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Esther Schlanger. Hi. Good evening, Dr. Eger. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here tonight. First, thank you for sharing your story with the world and sharing it with us tonight. I read your book, The Choice, about a year ago, right when COVID began, and it really changed as we went through the year. I took your message through, it took me throughout this very difficult year. Your story blew me away, and I'm sure everybody that read your book, because not only is your story about survival, but it's about your incredible outlook in life. And you've not only survived, but through a lot of inner work, you've worked a lot of inner work and determination, you thrived. Now, I just want, before we begin the interview, there's one quote right in the beginning of the book that is so powerful. You write, to quote you, Dr. Eger, "It took me many decades to discover that I could come at my life with a different question. Not why did I live, but what is mine to do with the life I have been given," which I found so powerful and life-changing. Reading your experiences and knowing that you made the choice, Dr. Eger, to choose life and to choose love has been inspiring and life-changing for me, and I'm sure for everybody that reads your book, and hopefully who's here tonight and listening to your story. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for interviewing me. I'm a very proud Jew because I know that my ancestors didn't have it as good as I do, but they never gave up. So I think we carry good blood, that no matter what the situation is, we're going to find a way to be survivors and not victims of any circumstance ever.
Yes, exactly. So we're here tonight, Dr. Eger, to hear your story.
Yes.
So let's start from the beginning, all the way from the beginning. What was your childhood like before it all came to a stop? Where did you grow up? Tell us about that. Tell us about your family and what was it like growing up in Hungary?
Well, my parents had two beautiful girls, Magda, and Magda was playing the piano, and Clara was a child prodigy and played the Mendelssohn violin concerto when she was 6 years old. And my parents decided it's time for us to have a son. And guess what happened? I was the third girl in this very talented family. But what I remember that my mother told me very, very seriously, I'm glad that you have brains because you have no looks.
Maybe.
And so I think my mother really gave me the way how I will live a life by learning as much as I could, to go to the library. I remember I went to the library and I would ask whether they got any new books in, because I just really was so hungry for knowledge. And of course, being a proud Jew today, to tell you that at 93, all I can tell you that you have to be old to be young, because I have such desire to connect with people and give up the need for other people's approval. You know, I am so free now and I'm so honest. And if I don't know anything, I just tell you. So it's a wonderful way to really look at life as a beautiful gift of God. And so my mother took me also to a ballet school, and the wonderful ballet master held me and told me that God built me such a magnificent way that I will have all my ecstasy coming from inside. I didn't realize, I didn't know the word ecstasy until I was in Auschwitz, when everything was taken away from me and I was able to remember the ballet master and look inward and look at life from inside out, rather than looking for someone to come and liberate me. So I think that kind of dependency breeds depression. And what I learned in Auschwitz, that I was not at all aware what will happen next minute. I didn't know whether we took a shower, whether water is going to come out or gas. I could have been taken to the gas chamber any minute. But what I bring you today is my soul, is my spirit that no Nazi could touch.
Well, so what was it like in Hungary for your family and Jews at that time period? Did you feel anti-Semitism? Did you feel hate growing up?
Oh, I went to a Jewish school, and that was before Hitler. When I come out, kids were spitting at me and calling me a Christ killer. Yes, anti-Semitism was there, and it is there now today just as much. Many people are still, unfortunately, are very anti-Semitic, and I do everything in my power to really do everything I can to unite us.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit about what your childhood was like? You said in your book, your father was a tailor.
Yes.
That's right.
That's right.
And he made clothing. and he made you some beautiful clothing, and I think your mother some beautiful clothing.
My father looked at me and said, when you grow up, you'll be the best dressed girl in town, because I was doing gymnastics, I was studying ballet, so I had a very good body for that. And so I always dress up for my papa.
That's
And
beautiful.
yes, yes, I think growing up in a very talented family, I am very, very grateful that I spent a lot of time alone. And I think God has prepared me for Auschwitz so I could take care of my sister Magda.
Right.
Magda was much hungrier than I was. So I would eat whatever they gave us, just soup. And then I saved the bread, and the following day I would tell her that really I'm not hungry.
Right. Wow.
I think we must really say that all we had was each other then. And if you were just for the me, you didn't make it. You had to commit yourself, you had to transcend the me, and commit ourselves to each other and form a family.
Right. So let me ask you, Dr. Eger, in the early years, going back to your childhood, it took a while for the war to kind of reach the Jews in Hungary. Kind of happened a little later. When did you and your family start feeling those effects of the Nazis and the war, and how did that affect you and your family?
It was taken over March 1944, and we had Passover dinner, and my father got up and kissed us on our heads. My sister Clara couldn't come home, which was really good because her Christian professor smuggled her out and took her home, and I saved her life. But we had our Passover dinner, and my father kissed us, and we went to bed. And a few hours later, there was a knock on our doors and took us to a brick factory in Kassa, Hungary. And then we were on the train, and we were told we're going to Hungary to work. But then I remember my mother telling me in the cattle car, we don't know where we're going. We don't know what's going to happen, honey. Just remember, no one can take away from you what you put in your mind. And this is what I tell in school when I go to school and speaking to the children, to take education seriously. Especially in America, the more pieces of paper you pick up, more doors open up for you. So I preach a little bit, but kids listen, because I tell them not to introduce me doctor, but introduce me as grandma and grandma, and they seem to listen.
Yeah, so let me ask you, so it must be very difficult, but can you share with us that journey, that unknown journey with your family from the factory to Auschwitz? What was that like, and what happened when you got there?
I think it was very difficult because we had no idea where we're going. We don't know where we're going to end up. I don't remember really having much food at all. And I don't remember even getting enough water. So I think we arrived very hungry, and we saw the sign, Arbeit macht frei. And my father said, well, it doesn't look so bad. We're just gonna work and go home. But that didn't happen at all. We were separated right away. And that's where we were at the end of the line. My mom in the middle, my sister Magda and I. And this guy asked me, is this your mother or is this your sister? And I never forgave myself that I said, it's my mother. And she pointed my mom to go to the left, and I followed my mom. And I never will forget those eyes. By the way, I was wearing a dress that my father made for me. with two little bows. And I saw him watching those bows, and maybe he decided, well, it just grabbed me and threw me on the other side, which meant life. And then we were asked to stand in line again, and a couple, fellow inmate, pulled my earrings out and told me that she was suffering there while I was still going to the theater. Yes, I am the final solution. Was going on when 15 highly educated people decided at the end of the day that they can put 30,000 Jews in the oven in one day. And that's the final solution that I am part of. These were highly educated people, and they were celebrating this, what is called the final solution of Eichmann.
Right. So how did, when you got to Auschwitz and you were separated from your sister, in the book it describes the separation process and how you went into the barracks, and then you share this incredible story of how Dr. Mengele ordered you to dance. Can you share that with us?
Well, yes, we were actually seeing some people who told us to take off our clothes, and I asked, when will I see my mother? Because Dr. Mengele told me, you'll see your mother very soon. She's just gonna take a shower. And she pointed at the chimney. And she said to me, your mother is burning there. You better talk about her in past tense. And my sister hugged me, and she said, the spirit never dies. I never forget that. That's how I entered Auschwitz. And Dr. Mengele came and wanted to be entertained. And the girls who knew me, that I did that in my city, I welcomed the president, and I did the Hungarian Csárdas, and I was also a student of ballet. And my teacher from my Jewish school was there. And I remember she looked at me with this bony finger and told me, you do what you are told. And then I ended up dancing. And he was pointing out who to take to the gas chamber. And I began to pray, not for me, so I wouldn't be the next one. And then I closed my eyes and pretended that the music was Tchaikovsky, and I was dancing the Romeo and Juliet at the Budapest Opera House, which was my dream. And then he gave me a piece of bread, and I could have, gobbled up the bread, but I looked up and the girls were up there. We were on the third row, and thank God, I climbed up and I shared the bread with the girls. And when I was in my unfortunate walk from Mauthausen to Gunskirchen, if you stopped, you were shot right away. And I began to slow down, and the girls that I shared the bread with came and carried me so I wouldn't die. Isn't that amazing that the worst really brings out the best in us? And this is why I'm here today. They carried me to Gunskirchen, and cannibalism broke out, and people were eating other people's flesh. And it was very, very, very hard not knowing what will happen. And I am so lucky that a month ago or so on 60 Minutes, I saw a man who was the 71st Infantry liberating my camp on May 4th, 1945. And we are in touch now, a beautiful man who was in the American Army. So life is really beautiful now for me, knowing that I will do everything I can to let people know not to give up and there is hope.
Wow. Rabbi Gordon, I think you're going to take over.
Pardon me?
Dr. Eger, I'm going to continue. We're going to take turns asking you questions, and some of the things you've shared have just been so powerful.
Thank you.
And I was really mesmerized by your book, taken by a lot of points. One of the things that you made, and I guess you've been known as, I guess, a ballerina, and that's made you somewhat famous in recent years in various places talks where you've gone. But your ballet really impacted the way you felt in the camp. It really impacted your perspective, and you write a little bit about that in the book. Can you share that with us, how it impacted you?
Well, all we had was each other. And that's why it was very important for us to see that we together, we're going to be much stronger than me alone or you alone. I think it was very important for us to cooperate, but not compete or dominate, because all we had was each other then. And guess what? All we have is each other now. So I never ask my patients, how can I help you? I ask, how can I be useful to you? Because, it's their life. And the more choices you have, the less you feel like a victim. So that's why I tell people, don't call me shrink, call me stretch. Yes. And I like to stretch today your possibilities, your choices, so you can learn to communicate and ask for what you want, and learn to negotiate and learn to compromise, because life is difficult, very difficult and very challenging. And we never know what's going to happen next.
Really taken your lessons that you learned in the worst of places, the most horrific place perhaps ever, and brought that into your practice later when you went into psychology to help people improve their own lives. What do you think it is that helped you survive? What was it about your perspective that helped you survive the horrors of the camp?
I may just come up with one word: curiosity. I always wanted to know what's going to happen next. After I was liberated, and when I got up in the morning and I realized my parents are not coming back, I was hurt. See, my boyfriend and I were very, very strong Zionists, and we were going to go to Palestine and fight. And I found out that he was killed the day before liberation. When all that hit me, when I got up, I didn't say what, I said what for. I didn't have any meaning in life. I wanted to die. I was very suicidal, and I know God spoke to me and told me, if I die now, I'm just going to be, unfortunately, a victim. But if I live, I'm going to be for something rather than against something. So I am for life and for uniting and for being a very proud Jew, because I know that my ancestors showed me, no matter what happens, there is a way, there is a light, that everything has something good in it. And I'm talking to a rabbi. Look at that. I'm talking to a wise man. Gosh, I respect you so much. And I hope.
Thank you. And we have a couple rabbis on. But, when we speak to a survivor, the survivors are our heroes today. If somebody asks, have you ever seen a saint, a Jewish saint? Sometimes someone asks, have you seen a tzaddik, a saintly person? And, I tell them, when I see a survivor, somebody who's gone through the camps and survived it, and then been able to take their life and bring it and, make a life of themselves afterwards, and so many didn't, then that's the real saint. That's, that takes real holiness, specialness, and you can ask. I go to Survivors and ask for blessings. It's such a powerful thing. But you've done more than that. You've taken you've survived and not just built your own life, but you've helped so many other people build their lives as well.
Well, life is full of surprises. After 2 girls, my son was born, and my husband was so proud that he's going to be coming to this world. And he was always going to remember Rabbi Eva Eger. And so what happened that my son did not develop the same way as my girls did. He didn't sit up, he didn't walk, he didn't talk. And I took him up to Johns Hopkins when he was 4 years old. And a wonderful neurologist told me that what I heard in Texas, that my son is retarded. We don't use that word anymore, thank God. But he told me my son is not retarded. He's drooling and he's not talking like a 4-year-old. But he told me that, Mother, your son is going to be what you make of him. And imagine how I was shaking. I was a student at a university in Texas. He says, your son needs occupational therapy, speech therapy, and was naming it. I paid him $10 and I went home. And I just like to tell you that my son John graduated as a top 10 student from the University of Texas. So that's what I bring you. I bring you that hope, that strength, never ever to give up, because there is light in the darkness. And we Jews were able to survive the desert. We have a state of Israel. Look at that. I was told that marijuana in the world is best in Israel. They even make the best weed. Amazing. Yes.
So I want to take you back, Dr. Eger, if you'll let me, back to your story, which I know everybody here, we have a lot of people on, want to hear your actual story. So before we were talking about your time in Auschwitz, but then you moved on and they took you out of Auschwitz. Can you tell us about what happened next?
See what happened, that I was put on the top of a train to carry ammunition for the Nazis. And we had the striped uniform, so the British won't bomb, but they bombed anyway. There were about 7 girls who died around me. My head was a little lower, and the door opened, and I was the first one to jump. I'm a gymnast, and I ran into the forest, and I didn't see my sister. In the middle of the bombing, I go back. Magda jumped, but she fell. She fell, and she was bleeding. And I'm ashamed to tell you that I was very, 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 very bad to my sister, because I saw some political prisoners eating. And I told her, no, you look like that, when you could go and ask for some food. I didn't even realize that maybe I can go, but I was the ugly one. She was the pretty one in the family. And so I am ashamed to tell you that I chewed up my sister, but thank God she's alive and well. She was 100 years old in January, but she will tell you that she's 99 years old. So I'm not going to tell her. I don't know why 1 year makes a difference.
Could have escaped and you went back for her.
Yes.
So you and your sister had this very unique relationship within the camps. In a sense, you held each other alive, kept each other alive. Can you talk about your relationship and how it helped you survive?
I think we never knew what's going to happen, and think we have to really have each other's support. And we had a lot of humor among us. We even had a boob contest, I want you to know. I mean, we did some silly things. And I know that we talked about food all the time. We were fighting how you make Hungarian chicken paprika, how much paprika you put in it, how much caraway seeds, so on. You know, we were constantly hungry. Abraham Maslow, of course, talks about the physiological needs and the safety needs, and that's exactly what happened. But all we had was each other then, and I knew who was going to die. I could have told you who was going to die. There was something in their face. There was something in their eyes. There was, in a way, how they just backed off little by little, kind of like not dying, but fading away.
Do you think it was a matter of perspective? Do you think that people's perspective in the camps had an impact if they survived?
I'm going to tell you, I beg of you, don't spoil your children. These were the children who grew up with nannies and wealth, and they were really the first one to give up. They didn't have the skill, and then unfortunately they didn't have the desire and the willingness that no matter what happens, I'm going to do everything in my power to stay alive.
Let's go back to your story. So you were talking about how you were on the trains, and then where did you go from there?
We ended up in Mauthausen, Austria. And when we walked up the steps, I said to myself, we came here to die, because I saw body parts everywhere. And I'm going to tell you shamelessly that night, I decided that I don't want to die until I see a male genitalia, because I had two sisters and I never saw my father without clothes. And I snuck outside to see some male bodies. But you see, I thought the following morning, we're going to go to the gas chamber for sure. And we almost did, and then they changed their mind. And then we were on the march, and they changed their minds. So I was walking from village to village. And when I was interviewed by Larry King, he asked me, did you ever experience kindness? And I said, you know, in this village, we were in a community hall, and we were told if we dare to leave the premises, we're going to be shot right away. But Magda told me if I don't get some food, she'll die. And I didn't care, and I went outside, and I saw some carrots in the next garden and jumped, and I picked up the carrots. I climbed up the wall, and I met the guy with a gun. I heard the clicking at least 3 or 4 times, and there was that eye contact again. And then he turned the gun around, pushed me inside, and the following day, he wanted to know who dared to break the rules. I climbed over to him, and I told him it was me. I was so scared. And you know what? He gave me a little loaf of bread and said, you must have been hungry to do what you did last night. I wish I could meet that man. And yes, I met that diamond in that garbage pile, and I met a kind person. But
The German, this was a kind German, there were some.
That's really was. And when I was with Larry King, he also talked to Ahmadinejad, who told Larry that there is no such thing as a Holocaust. And that's what Plato said. You have to think of a lie, you have to be a big one, and then you repeat it until people believe it. So I beg children to question authority rather than blindly adhere to authority, because unfortunately, we have to really be very careful whose truth we are going to really question, and we have to question authority. And that's what I do when I go to school. to really question the teacher too, and to be sure that the teacher is going to be able to find a way to answer any questions. Maybe they have to go to the library and research, but I am a former teacher myself, and I teach today too. I have a big blackboard in my office, and I tell people to say, I am, I can, I will, that we are picking an arrow, to follow an arrow in life, to have a goal. And then you have to realize what you are focusing on, because what you focus on, it has to be in alignment to get you closer to a goal. And my goal is to do everything in my power to see to it that your children, grandchildren will never ever experience what I did.
Dr. Eger, you're truly inspiring. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Krasiansky. She's going to take over and continue interviewing.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Dr. Eger. Like the other Chabad rabbis and rebbitzins on this chat, I'd like to say what an honor it is for us and me personally to meet you and speak with you. I come from a generation where our parents went through the war, different experiences. My parents personally were not in the camps. They were refugees on the run in the Siberian forest. Everybody has their own experience. But you've been through so much. You're being in front of Mengele and in Auschwitz, and then escaping to Mauthausen, and then afterwards you write in the book how you went through the communism in Czechoslovakia, if I'm not mistaken, which I'd like to ask you about in a minute. But if I can go a little bit in another direction, and if you do not want to answer this question, feel free. But me personally, I was so struck by your tremendous desire to live. And having known and spoken with a number of Holocaust survivors in my years, some people came out of the war with no belief in God. Some were able to hold on to their belief in God. Some came from a very strong background, a religious background, and then left it all after the war. And there's, of course, no judgment, because when somebody has seen that horror, the prophets, the Jewish prophets, the millennia ago described it as ud mutzal me'esh, a single stick saved from the fire. And that's what every Jew is, a miraculous tale of survival. So if I may ask you, what was your relationship with God throughout all these horrors in Auschwitz and escaping and all the difficulties? And even when you came to America, you encountered many difficulties. If I may ask you, do you feel comfortable to talk about that?
Yes, very much so. People ask me, where was God? And I say, God didn't kill my people. People did. God was with me. God gave me the opportunity to change the hatred to pity, that I began to feel sorry for those guys that wearing the uniform, throwing children into the oven without even gassing them. But I did not really listen to them when they told me that the only way I will get out of here as a corpse. And when they took my blood, very often I asked him, why are you taking the blood? And he said, to aid the German soldiers so that I can win the war and take over the world. I said to myself, Sal, you stupid idiot, with my blood, you're never gonna win the war. No, God was God. I found God in Auschwitz. And when I come home every day, I thank God for bringing me home safe. My God is a loving, beautiful God who gives me the strength to get up, even though I have a bad scoliosis, and to be able to go and exercise and do the best I can so I can really do what I was told to do, because I owe it to my parents. This is my duty. And I'm celebrating life with you and remembering what my mom told me, that no matter what happens, no one can take away from me the way I'm giving hope to people. And I'm looking at the same thing from a different perspective. That's why I call Auschwitz an opportunity for an opportunity to discover the strength, to discover the God, to discover the part in me that is doing her calling. It's not a job. It's my calling that gives meaning and purpose in my existence. And for me to talk to you, what a beautiful memories that we make. And I'll do anything in my power to let you know that the Chabad and the Jewish people that you represent is bringing nothing but peace and goodwill. So I'm so happy to be part of your family. You can call me anytime. And if you're not doing very well in your marriage, this is the time to redecide and see how you can really be the most loving parents, because children don't do what we say, they do what they see. And love is not what you feel, love is what you do.
That's true. That's, it is incredible to hear your indomitable spirit and your faith in God coming through, even through the hell that you experienced. And that is, it's very empowering for us who do not live through nearly such difficult times. And everybody goes through challenges in life, but to learn from you how to hold on to God, even through the most difficult of circumstances, and recognize that God is pulling us through.
That's what I discovered in Auschwitz. God was with me. God is with me now, every moment, and guide me how to send people to look inside themselves, because the only one you have for a lifetime is you. All other relationship and dependency can breed depression. So that's why it's very important to have not too much dependency or not too much independence, but to have interdependence. That I can be I, you can be you, but together we're gonna be far more better than without each other.
Thank you. If I can go back to your story for one more moment. After the war, if I remember correctly, I read your book last year, but if I remember correctly, after the war, you made your way to Czechoslovakia, and there you encountered communism, and you had to escape from that. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about that part of your story?
I had the Nazis and I had the communists as well. There was this guy who helped me to find the TB hospital. He had TB, I did not. And he was also hiding in Czechoslovakia in the forest. And he would ask me a lot of questions, and he liked very much that I was very learned about Greek goddesses and so on. But I know that people ask me, did you love your husband? And my answer is, I was very skinny. I was very hungry. And I was very lonely. And this guy brought me Hungarian salami. That's how we got married. So we grieve over not what happened, but what didn't happen. You see? Because I remember when my granddaughter asked me to buy her a dress so she can go to the school for her dance, and I came home. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I was crying. And it made me realize that I'm not crying because Lindsay went to a dance. I cried because I never went to a dance. So that's why it's very important to do some work and see. You maybe want to acknowledge a question which I ask all the time. When did your childhood end? Because if you're a child of a survivor, you come to America and you end up taking care of your parents. I know that my little girl brought me peanut butter. I never saw peanut butter or tuna fish in my life. So I think it's very important to really look at your ages and stages of your development. but I knew that the communists came and they confiscated the business and they threw my husband in jail. And I have a question right away as a survivor, not why me, but what now? I went to the jail. I put this in my little girl's diaper. I took a big diamond ring. I gave it to the warden. And that's how we came to America penniless. We ended up at the Rothschild Hospital in Vienna. And I knew that the American Jewish population is making that, unfortunately, to really, for me to take care of my little girl. When I was in Miami, when I talked to the Jewish community, I told them that maybe their money is now helping a young mother as I was in 1949. So I came to America penniless, and then I ended up working in a factory and then learning English and going back to school. And thank God, today I am so happy guiding young people to really be proud to be a Jew and to be able to not really ever run from the past or fight the past, but recognize that suffering makes you stronger.
Wow. Okay. So we have Auschwitz, we have Mauthausen, we have communism. I don't know if we can say Kanai Nahara, but if I may ask Dr. Eger, just because in my mind I like to have things structured, how old were you when you came to Auschwitz? How old were you when you came to Czechoslovakia? And how old were you when you came to America? Like at what stage in life were you exactly during those times?
I was 16 years old. You see, I don't call you a strong woman. I call you a woman of strength. And you are a woman of strength that no one can touch. No one can ever take away from you. So you learn how to respond, not to react. And for that, I always tell the student to check out a movie called The Karate Kid, because the best power is brain power, and not to use and not to smoke and so on. And I hope to be a good role model. I think
you're an extraordinary role model, and halavai, each of us should be able to hold on to your kind of strength and spirit and connection to God through such difficulties. And I'd like to ask you one more question, if you don't mind, and then I will ask Rabbi Morozov if he would like me to turn it over to someone else. And my last question is, I know that Dr. Frankl Viktor Frankl has a different school of psychology than most other schools of psychology. From my layman's perspective, what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, most other schools of psychology, beginning with Freud, talk about how man's actions are determined and motivated by his most basest, lowest instincts. And Viktor Frankl, from his experiences in the camps himself, he himself went through Auschwitz and emerged. He observed that the survivors, like yourselves, were the one that rose to the highest levels of the spirit. As you said before, you had that little piece of bread that Mengele gave you, and you turned around and you went and you shared it with the girls that were there. So can you talk to us a little bit about how Dr. Frankl's psychology influenced you and impacted your career choices and your career path as a psychologist?
You know, I was a student at the University of Texas, and someone handed me a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And I went home and I started to read it. And I wanted to write like 10 pages for everyone. I couldn't wait to write an article, Viktor Frankl and me. And then someone sent it to him to Vienna, and I got a letter and we met, and I became a diplomate in logotherapy. And it's an existential approach. There is Freud, yes, there is Jung, there is Adler, but Viktor Frankl is talking about what I was told always, that I look for the meaning and purpose in life. And that's the existential part, that people wonder, how do I want to be remembered? I think that's a very important question. I am at the evening part of my life. I actually look at life as one day, because the morning sunshine doesn't come back. I decide in the morning how I'm going to feel at night. And I know I'm going to feel very satisfied in my deathbed, that I was with you 6 o'clock at night, that I am with the Chabad, and I am a proud Jew, that I use every moment not to throw out a piece of bread. If you take me out to dinner, I usually eat up your leftovers, or I take it home with me. But my daughter keeps telling me, Mom, it's okay to leave food on your plate. But I left part of me in Auschwitz, not the better part. And Auschwitz, to me, gave me what I have today, not to ever give up, ever, no matter what happens. There is love and there is light, even in the darkest places.
Whoa, Dr. Eger, you really have lived that. You're not saying that as a platitude, and you're saying that from very difficult, there's no words for it, very horrifying life experiences. If I can just close with a thought before I turn it over to the other Chabad rabbis and Rebbitzins, I would like to point out two things. Number one, that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, whom I'm sure you know,
I think he met with Viktor Frankl.
No, I was actually going to mention that he sent a letter to Dr. Frankl. It's a little known incident in history when Dr. Frankl was ready to give up on pursuing and publicizing his brand of psychotherapy or psychology. The Rebbe sent him a letter to encourage him to continue. And after that, Dr. Frankl picked himself up from his despair, continued, and ultimately became the enormous success that his School of Psychology is today, translated into many, many languages. Dr. Frankl searched for meaning. And this came actually from the Lubavitcher Rebbe's encouragement, who very strongly believed in taking the positive, as you have shown with your life, taking the positive from the horror.
He is my idol. He is my idol. And there is that wonderful person that I adore, just like you do as well, that gives us hope, that we never give up, no matter what it is. I say I don't like it, it's really inconvenient, and it's temporary, and I can survive it. There is no yes, but in my vocabulary. Yes, and. It's temporary, everything is temporary. And for us to talk tonight, I know I'm going to go to bed feeling so good, watching the beautiful faces, the beautiful people, just to remember that there'll never be another you. I think we're all unique, one of a kind. There'll never, ever be another you. That is a wonderful celebration. For me to tell you that the Chabad is all over the world, and I go with you wherever you go, and let people know to listen to you, because you are the answer. Love is the answer. Love will conquer all. But not
Dr. Eger, you are a remarkable woman. And I would like to just close my turn right here with another comment, which is, I don't know if you've ever studied with any Chabad rabbis or Rebbitzins, but a very integral principle in Chabad philosophy is that, I'll say first in Hebrew and then I'll translate, Yerida letzarech aliyah, which means that a descent is in order for ascent. When God puts us into a low space, whether it's psychologically, physically, emotionally, that is only in order so we should transcend and reach a much higher place. And I have to say that your life absolutely exemplifies that Hasidic principle, whether you know it or not. You've lived a Hasidic life in that way, because you have taken from the worst of the worst, the lowest of the lowest, and transcended it and become a source of light, a beacon of hope to so many people all over the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shalom. Shalom.
I think we have a few more minutes, Dr. Eger. I just want to say you're a beacon of light. At first, I thought that there was a lot of light in the back of your room, but I think it's your face. It's just you're shining. Your light is radiating. It's so beautiful, so inspirational. And as you're talking, I have so many questions coming up on my phone. People are texting me, can you ask Dr. Eger this or that? Of course, we don't have the time for everything. So I want to just ask you a question from an 11-year-old, Maya. She's watching today, and she's asking, what was it like to start a new life after the war? How did you overcome the trauma, or did you overcome the trauma? And how did you have the strength to start once again? I think people have this question. Today we're going through COVID, we went through COVID-19, and people have lost jobs or whatever it may be. Of course, it's not as severe, but how did you start after the war and a new career, an author, et cetera, et cetera? Maybe you can share some inspiration.
I don't think there is such a thing as going back. There is a new beginning. It's a rebirth. It's a renaissance. You want to know what are you holding on to and what are you willing to let go of, because that's my definition of love, the ability to let go. Let go many things that used to work then, it's not working now. Like I ask people, never ask, how are you? Because people will say fine when they're not fine. People lie to you if you ask a question. It's better to say, gee, it's good to see you, I missed you. I never would ask such a question like, how are you? And I tested it with my students. You know, in the morning, they picked up their books and their friend said, hi, how are you? And my student said, my mother died this morning. And he said, great, I'll see you this afternoon. People are hearing and not listening. So I think today I'm going to ask you to listen to your voice, because the way you talk to yourself changes your whole body chemistry. Nice. Listen to your voices. And my mother's voice is with me every morning. How can I spend the day giving, not asking what I can get, but what I can give? It's about giving, and that's what Chabad is doing. You're giving all over the world, you're giving. Giving to my son. My son is welcome by the Chabad. And that's what you do. You are ambassadors for peace and goodwill. I take my hat off. I pray that you will continue what you're doing now. And I'm going to do everything in my power to let people know that the Chabad is the best thing that ever happened to the world.
Wow, that's beautiful. I think that would be the way to end.
Right. The 11-year-old girl is going to be bat mitzvah. And if I'm still alive, I would like to say a few words on her bat mitzvah. But right now, I'm asking her to be as wise as she can. Not smart, but wise.
Beautiful. And just to close, you know, today we are experiencing anti-Semitism. I think, unfortunately, there's some people who are, you know, shirking away or hiding their Judaism because they're afraid of anti-Semitism. I'm sure you don't agree with that. Can you share with us some words of strength and how to stand tall and proud of who we are and of our heritage, of our background?
Yes, I'm very proud. And I'm very proud, as I told you, and my ancestors, but January 6th, when I saw a man wearing a shirt that 6 million wasn't enough, how do you think I felt? How do you think I feel about the white supremacy? I think we want to really be sure that we will be as careful as we can who we support and how not to overlook anything that unfortunately history has a tendency to repeat itself.
Thank you. and to really stand tall and proud of our Yiddishkeit. Be proud of who we are, be proud of our heroes, be proud of our ancestors, be proud of Dr. Eger, someone who really is standing tall and proud.
There is a little boy behind you. He's the future.
I think I know him. He should be sleeping now, yeah.
Yes, he's the future.
He's the future, definitely. And thanks to you, with the inspiration, we have that power, we have the strength to teach our children, to keep it going every day, one day at a time. Thank you so much, Dr. Eger. Thank you so much, all these 7 communities who joined us today. If you still want to buy a signed book by Dr. Eger, you can go to the same website that you signed up for this Zoom, and you can get a signed autographed book by Dr. Eger. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your life. Thank you for your inspiration. Thank you for your light. Thank you for your hope. Thank you for your message. It's so beautiful, Doctor.
I want you to know that you're the role model, the way you talk to your children, and the children are wanting you to know how you treat their mother. So that is, bring breakfast in bed to the children's mother, and just something extra, because your children look at you as a good role model, how you treat their mother.
100%. My wife's here listening. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. God bless you.
God bless you. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. The rabbis, the rebbitzins, the communities. And we should truly have the true redemption, the true revelation of Mashiach speedily in our days. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Meraza, for organizing, and to all the other organizers.
Thank you. Thank you.